Looking to grow your business at an exponential level? What I want to do today is I'm going to break down for you how to turn your yearly income into your monthly income. I've done this a couple of times throughout my career, and I'm going to break down exactly the process of what I did, how you can do this in your business to see substantial growth in the coming year. So one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of agents right now is the fact that they feel like their business is stalled, or maybe they're feeling like they're at a place where the market is holding them back a little bit. Let me just say this. Somebody is absolutely going to have their best year this next year. And the question just becomes is it going to be you? And if so, if that's what you want, what is it that you can do to have that best year? I'm going to break that down for you today. There have been a couple times in my career where I've gone back and I've looked where I had substantial, almost parabolic growth, where my business was going this direction and it just shot up at an unbelievable amount of pace in a very short period of time. And so what I want to do is break down for you exactly the steps that I utilized in those situations so that you can apply them in your business and that you can see that type of growth. And no matter whether you see substantial growth, growth is growth. So give yourself a little bit of grace. Let's put together a plan and let's start getting that growth you're looking for. So the first step is this. You have to understand that there's really only two ways to do more business. It's number one is to do more of what has worked in the past, or to do new things that generate new types of results for your business. So let's break both of these down, and then we're going to basically, on the third step I'm going to talk about how to execute on what we're talking about. The first thing is let's evaluate where you are right now. It's hard to know where you're headed until you know where you are. So what is it that's worked in the past for you? So what I want you to do is I want to do a couple of steps here, very specific steps, where it's almost like we're going to take a little bit of time to squat a little bit so that we can begin to jump into this newness of your business. All right, so the first step to this is let's evaluate the transactions you've had in the past and where they've come from. And we're going to do this by basically taking out and really writing down the address, the names of the people, where they first came from, and what that looked like as far as the type of revenue it generated for you in your business. Because I'm going to evaluate this two specific ways, okay? So what we want to do is we want to have those things. Once we've broken that down and I'd like for you to go back 2 years to see what that looks like. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to break this down two different ways. Number one is how many of those transactions came from specific types of things. You may notice I generated 3 closings from online leads. I generated 10 closings from referrals. I generated 15 closings from open houses or direct mail or geographical farming. Whatever it is for you, break it down by the number of those transactions over those last couple of years to a place where you can see percentage-wise where is the specific strategy that is generating the business for you. Now what I want us to do also is, now that we know what those are, I want you to take for each of those categories and I want you to break down what was the revenue that each of those transactions in each of those categories generated. Now what this is doing is sometimes what we can do is we can get focused on doing activities because it's generating closings. The bottom line in our business is not more transactions. The bottom line can be more transactions, but the bottom line ultimately is what is making us the most revenue with the least amount of work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break these down. So if we see that we had 3 transactions that came from online leads, for instance, let's write down and total up what the total revenue to you in your business was from those 3 transactions. Then we're going to do that with each of those categories. Now we're going to take and we're going to get percentages of what that revenue was to the whole that you had. We're going to compare this to the number of transactions with that, because what we might find is that by holding open houses, we actually ended up having on an average transaction more money coming in. So we want to do the activities that are not just going to generate more transactions. We're going to generate the activities and do more of those activities that are generating the most money. So now that we've got this broken down and we've got this set aside, now that's going to take us to our next step. The second step is to evaluate all of your expenses. Now this is for 2 reasons. A lot of times we have unneeded expenses in our business. And by evaluating these expenses, it's going to give us the ability to really focus in. When we're talking about, we're going to do more of what's working, where we can reallocate funds, but we can also eliminate funds that we're spending mindlessly that aren't generating any results. So I want to give you one specific tool that we're using right now, which is Rocket Financial. Rocket Financial actually has, and I'm not talking about the Rocket, it's a product from Rocket Mortgage, obviously, but what it does is it gives you a list of all of the accounts that you have that are ongoing or monthly fees that you're paying, and it gives you the ability with one click to be able to cancel that subscription. How many times do we have these subscriptions we don't even know about? This is going to be one step that we can do. The second step on evaluating all of our expenses is understand if you're buying online leads, how much did you spend on buying online leads last year? How many transactions did you have? And how much is it really generating ROI-wise, return on that investment, or is it costing you money? Now we're identifying those areas and what the actual expense is, as well as the time that it takes. And now we've got a better understanding of our business. Again, what we talked about before is we got to understand where we are before we can begin to build a plan on where we're headed. Now we have that foundation. We know where our transactions are coming from. We know where the best and highest producing value-wise as far as the revenue is coming from the types of transactions. And we also know where our expenses are going and how they're generating the opportunity for additional revenue. Now I mentioned we were going to evaluate not just our expenses, but the activities. Here's how we're going to evaluate that. For the next 2 weeks, what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to keep a journal, and on an hourly basis, take just a couple of seconds and write down what you did that one single hour as far as towards your business. If you were making outbound calls to past clients, great. Mark that down. How many minutes did you do that? Were you following up on online leads? Were you sitting in an open house? Whatever you were doing, let me tell you, the first thing that's going to happen is when you know at the end of the hour you got to write something down, you're absolutely going to get more efficient over these next 2 weeks. But what this is going to do is this is going to give us an understanding of how you're spending your time. Because in reality, we talked about how are you spending your money, how are you investing your business with your money and your finances that way. But in reality, the most valuable thing you've got is your time. How are you spending your time? So let's evaluate that, break that down at the same time we're doing all these other items, and all of a sudden now we've got a clear understanding of the activities we're doing and the activities that are actually generating business or not generating business, so that we can begin to not just reallocate our finances, but we can begin to reallocate our time to those higher producing activities as well. All right, so now that we've done all of the evaluation, that takes us to the last step when it comes to what's working so we can do more of that. And I want you to look at those things in a real clear picture, not the things you like, but what's actually generating the business. And what I want you to do is I want you to double down on the things that are generating the most results and the highest value in those results. And I want you to eliminate, no matter how much you enjoy those things, eliminate the things that are not generating business and that are a lower value use of your time and your finances. What we've done here is we've doubled down on the things that are working, and now we've freed up some space, some time, some finances to really go into step 2 in this, which is doing new things. Now the question becomes, what do we do for new things? And I'm going to break that down right now. And let me say this is a portion of your business where you have to understand where this is something we scale things in. The last thing you want to do is to spend half of your time doing things you know work, half of your time trying to figure out something that will additionally work. So what I like to do is I like to use the 80-20 rule, but applying it actually to this portion of doing more of what's working and trying some additional things to figure out how we do this. So I want you to spend 80% of your time, in other words, doubling down on those things we identified that are absolutely working in your business. The additional 20% of your time, what I want you to do is to spend that time testing and trying some new things out. Now, how do we find those things? The first step in this process is to go out and identify agents in other markets that are doing business in the way you would like to do it, and begin to understand what it is they do. So in other words, if you find an ideal agent or an agent that you would like to model your business after, what does their daily activity look like? Not now, but they did when they were at your level. So figure it out. What is it that they did? Did they have a schedule where they were making outbound calls 2 hours every morning? Make those outbound calls. Did they build their business on Instagram, on YouTube, or maybe they built it in open houses or direct mail through geographical farming? Whatever it is, spend 20% of your time doing those activities that you see that successful agents are doing in other markets that you can bring into your local market. Identify what it is that other agents are doing right now, not just what they've done in the past, but what's working right now. And you're going to have the ability to test some things out that have already been kind of run through, I guess you could say, the filter to see if they work. You're seeing them work in someone else in a different market, apply them in your market, and you're probably going to see the same results there as well. The second step in that strategy really is once you've identified what that activity is that some of those other agents are doing, become obsessed with learning how to be the most efficient person in your marketplace with that strategy. Listen, if you decide that I'm going to go all in on geographical farming, which I absolutely believe you should be, then in that case, become a student of geographical farming. Watch what other people do. See how the type of mailers they send out. Look and see how frequently they send a mail. How do they follow up? How do they host an open house in that targeted neighborhood? What do they do post-sale instead of just a just sold card to make sure all the neighbors see them and understand that they are the expert for that neighborhood? Whatever strategy it is that you begin to test and try out, become obsessed with knowing that, but more about that than anyone else in your marketplace. When you become obsessed with understanding how to do a strategy, you act differently, you take different actions, you believe it more, and by that belief, you're gonna do more actions, and that's gonna get you better results. The next to the last step that we're gonna do is we're gonna put a plan together with a strategy that we are going to commit to for 3 months at a minimum, and we're gonna work harder than we have for the next 3 months. So what is it? If you're wanting different results, especially what we're talking about, moving your annual income to your monthly income, I just have to tell you, it's gonna take a little bit more work, especially on the front end to get the momentum built. So what I want us to do is to put together a strategy and a plan where we're mapping out our days. Part of the reason why we went and did that journal on our daily activity is really to give you an understanding of how little most of us are really working on a daily basis. I want us to get as efficient as possible. Listen, sometimes it's not about working more hours. It's just about doing more in those hours that you're working. So if we can create that plan where we've got it set down that we're going to be doing specific strategies during specific times in the morning, for instance, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have our listing appointments and our showings and setting our schedule in a way where instead of reacting to what's happening, we're making the world around us to react to the activities we're doing. All of a sudden now, we've got a plan of action in place that's absolutely going to move our business to another level. Last but not least, we talked about now we've got our plan. The last thing is just execute relentlessly. Just absolutely be relentless in your execution, especially over the next 3 months. Commit to a 90-day period where you're going to do things completely different than you've done in the past. Look, if you're looking for a strategy for this, Tom Ferry and is doing something right now along with Jimmy Mackin where they're doing 100 days to 100K. It's a great program. They're using some of the strategies that I've talked about, some of the other agents have talked about, but find a way for you to put together a plan that you know is going to work and execute relentlessly on that plan, and I promise you're going to get those results. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.